I just finished showering and I was thinking about what has shaped me to become who I currently am now. Today has been extremely quiet, and if you know me, you already knew that I don't have like friends or I don't talk to anyone on daily basis. I live alone. So pretty much empty. I am essentially a mute person. I don't even talk if you don't count me making like YouTube videos. That is the only time that I speak. So now I have no one, right? But back then I was very dependent and over caring. Really, I cared about how people feel when I hurt them, even though I didn't do it intentionally, but it doesn't matter. I just felt the need to repair the damage. So I took the responsibility of everyone's feelings, no matter what. I never focused on what they did, their part in their what is the right terminology here? Like action that caused them to feel that way. I always blame myself because they said that you hurt me or you should not do that. Of course, like you understand it instinctively that it is your fault. So, man, in the end, I was a person who was not being cared at all. I tried to repair the damage, but then when they feel good, they just live their life normally, act as if nothing happened. But at the time, I didn't focus on this part. Instead, it was a habit, I suppose, that I built resentment toward them. Because eventually, it is always like that. At some point, I just exploded. And you probably think like, but why don't you talk it out? I mean, back then I wasn't a person who just capable of sitting down and talking about like a serious topic or open up about something. It sucked, right? I often put them first. I don't care about how I would feel, since to me, if they're happy, then my life is okay. I can chill around with them. I can enjoy my quality time with them. Then that's it. I can have fun. But eventually, it becomes self-destruction, since it wasn't good for me at all, and I kind of felt worse, since every relationship that I had, whether it is like friendship, romantic relationships, or even about like my family, it always ended in a bad like way somehow, since it is like I'm trying to fix the problems on the surface level but not trying to fix it from like the root cause. Because I don't know if it is because of I wasn't capable of it, or I just knew that if I were to do that, this relationship might end, or it could have been awkward, or they might like they might have like viewed me differently, and I didn't want that. I want them to see me as like I was. So I just didn't take any cost of action. Instead, I just lived like that for like years, and then I lost many people along the way, like my best friends, and just like I wouldn't say that like my exes, since my first relationship sucked, since I got cheated on. But a lot of the time, I just think that, man, I should care their feelings, but who took care like mine? Since I'm also like just another human being. I feel, I hurt, but it felt like I was the only one who understood it really well, that I just didn't want it to happen to anyone at all. That's why I always try to repair it. Just did whatever they demanded, regardless, even though it made me feel worse, because the, like, what is the word here? When there is a problem, right, and the other person felt hurt for whatever reason, and you might also felt like hurt, maybe because you felt bad because they felt like that, or maybe like the problem also caused you to feel that way. But then you are the only one who try to do something with it for the other person to feel better. But then when you did things out of your own way and the other person felt better, they just lived like their life, you kind of inevitably build resentment if you don't talk it out, or try to, what, I don't know if there is another good way besides like talking it out, since that is the most effective way to solve like the root cause of the problem so that it wouldn't reoccur. But then when right now I am kind of the opposite of who I was. I just don't care about people that much, since I know that they're not gonna be reciprocal. If I care about them, I try to fix it, and they just live their life. And how about like my feeling? I'm also just another human being. I also want some reassurance. I also want some caring. I also want love. But I know that when I expect something, I'm not trying to like be a person who always expects something in return, but you get me, right? Imagine if like you have like a conflict 10 times in a row. I think it is almost implausible that all of them would be your fault, because if that is the case, you must be a horrible person. Usually, like, at least it would be mutual responsibility. They must have contributed to some extent, even if it's like 10% or like 20. It doesn't have to be like 50-50 for them to take responsibility. And it doesn't have to be objective, when it comes to feeling. This is what I learned. Back then, there was a time that I used only logic to solve the problem, but that is not how it worked. Like, that's my biggest mistake that I did. Because in fact, sometimes when we feel something, it is emotion. Sometimes it really can't be fixed by principle, theory, or logic that, you're gonna use like premise 1, premise 2, and therefore it's fine. Just sometimes it doesn't work like that, okay? In reality, many people, they often exploit your overcaring disposition, since they know that they would never be wrong, since you would always own up, you would always take responsibility. So they would always feel good and perfect because you give them a reason to feel that. But really, at some point, you just know that, man, I just can't do this anymore. It eats me alive. And if that is the case, I would just rather be alone. I don't want to be neglected, ignored, or misunderstood anymore. I try to help them. At what expense? They just want you to take the blame regardless. They don't want to take responsibility since it is just easier, right? Wait for the other person to do something for you and then you feel good. They don't have to do anything, but you do everything yourself. And if that would be the case, you also have to take care of how you feel. Man, like, living in that kind of life, it is so suffocating. So as time went by, I learned from my personality that I just cannot thug it out anymore. So I just gradually stopped caring about people and try to put myself first. Since if I were to continue to be an overcaring person, then people would just take advantage of me and I wouldn't be able to be happy or get mutual respect from the other person. I don't want to live my life like it's a event where I have to do whatever it takes for, the king to feel like good all the time. I don't want to be the person who is indirectly forced to be obedient. I'm not an animal. So when you understand how it worked, you just changed yourself. You don't want to be a victim anymore. So that is like the vital part in my life to think about. And I mean, I'm not trying to blame them, people who wronged me, but I just cannot live like that anymore. And when you just chose yourself and you knew that not everyone would care about how you feel, then you just gotta, step out of the circle and live your life in a way that at least you don't have to be disrespected or neglected. And, your life might be adrift sometimes, like I said. That is why I came to think about it. It shaped me a lot back then. 7 years ago, when I was still quite young. So I think it is great, at some point in your life, you learned from your mistake and just, it was a huge lesson. And I think better than at least I don't have to be an overcaring person in the future when I get married already and my wife would just take advantage of it. I'm not trying to blame my future wife, but at least you know the pattern and you know what you should do in that kind of situation, or at least talk it out beforehand so it won't end up in like the same way. And yeah, I think that is pretty much overall. Thanks a lot for watching and see you in the next one.